The HMS Southampton and HMS Belfast are a pair of battle rating 5.7 British light cruisers, with the former being in the tech tree and the latter being a premium. For a bit of history on the two, both are town-class cruisers. The HMS Southampton is the lead ship of the Southampton subclass, while the HMS Belfast is the second ship of the Edinburgh subclass. HMS Southampton was laid down in 1934 and commissioned in 1937. She initially raided German convoys and later escorted troops in the Red Sea. In 1941, she was attacked by the German Air Force off of Malta, resulting in the ship having to be scuttled by the cruisers Gloucester and Orion. The HMS Belfast was laid down in 1936 and commissioned in 1939. She was struck by a German mine early in the war and spent 2 years being repaired and refitted. After this, the Belfast went on to assist in hunting down the Scharnhorst and covering the Allied invasion of Normandy. It later served in the Korean War and then entered the Naval Reserve in 1963. The HMS London is still around today as a museum ship, moored in London near the Tower Bridge. In War Thunder, both ships have the same primary armament of 12 6-inch 50 caliber cannons split into 4 turrets, 2 in the front of the ship and 2 in the back. These cannons have a fire rate of 8 shells per minute and pretty average dispersion. The 6-inch 50 caliber cannon gets 4 shell types: HE, SAP, HETF, and HEVT. The stock HE is pretty average, serving as the best shell for fighting destroyers and lightly armored vessels, but being very weak against heavily armored vessels. The SAP shell is the best shell overall, being excellent for damaging or detonating the ammunition of enemy cruisers due to its great mix of armor penetration and explosive filler. The HEVT shell is useful for taking out enemy aircraft and completely obsoletes the HETF ammunition by simply being better than it. It also has the same explosive filler as the standard HE shells, meaning that you can take it instead at the slight cost of some additional SL. Overall, I would recommend taking primarily SAP ammunition and then some HEVT for killing lightly armored targets and aircraft. Speaking of killing aircraft, next comes the secondary cannon armament. The HMS Southampton has 4 dual 4-inch cannons, 2 quad pom-poms, and 2 quad Vickers machine guns. The HMS Belfast has an improved anti-air loadout of 4 dual 4-inch cannons and 6 dual Bofors cannons. The 4-inch cannons get access to HE, SAP, HETF, and HEVT shells. I'd recommend taking just the HEVT, as there's very little reason to bring other shells for the secondaries. The 40mm cannons of both ships are an excellent deterrent to aircraft, with the Bofors of the Belfast being superior to the pom-poms of the Southampton. Lastly, the Southampton's Vickers machine guns don't really do much. They're nice to have, but the pom-poms will do the majority of the work in most anti-air engagements. Lastly, for weaponry comes secondary weapons. The HMS Southampton gets 6 torpedoes split into 2 dual launchers, while the HMS Belfast doesn't have any secondary weapons. I'd recommend just leaving the torpedoes off, as having 6 mediocre torpedoes isn't really worth the risk of instantly losing the ship if they're hit. Next comes survivability, where the two ships are actually quite different. The Southampton has a crew of 748, while the Belfast has a crew of 956. Both have a 114mm thick rolled cemented armor belt with a pretty wide coverage area, though the layout is a bit different, with the Belfast providing overall better ammo protection. The Belfast has torpedo bulges that can protect against torpedoes of up to 250 kilograms of explosive mass, while the Southampton has no such torpedo protection. The Belfast also has roughly 4 times as much frontal turret armor as the Southampton, but has no bridge armor, meaning it's relatively easy to knock out the steering of the vessel, but harder to knock out the cannons. Overall, both have a pretty effective protection scheme and are some of the tankiest vessels in War Thunder currently. Lastly, for the vessel stats comes mobility. The Southampton has a top speed of 58 km per hour, and the Belfast has a top speed of 60 km per hour. Both have pretty average mobility, so there's not that much to say about them here. For playstyle, both the Southampton and Belfast work best when they can get in close and leverage their powerful SAP and thick armor. Aiming for the ammo of enemy ships is absolutely critical, as well as maneuvering in combat to keep your own ammunition protected. With precise aim, the SAP of the 6-inch guns can consistently one-shot most vessels, so the Southampton and Belfast are incredibly dangerous with enough practice. At long range, the SAP can lack penetration to get through the ammo protection of some vessels, so closing to short range is generally the best option. The powerful anti-air loadouts of both ships can keep them protected from aircraft even when they're alone, so don't be afraid to use nearby terrain for cover to close the distance to enemy ships. For the Southampton's modifications, I'd recommend the following order. toolset, fire protection, 6-inch CPBC, rudder replacement, smoke screen, shrapnel protection, 4-inch HEVT, propeller replacement, ammo wetting, and engine maintenance. The Belfast comes with all modifications unlocked, along with a talisman. As a premium grinder, the HMS Belfast is quite good, being pretty forgiving due to its high armor. It does require good aim to one-shot enemy vessels, so for new players it may be a bit harder to use it first than some other ships, but that can actually be a good thing as it teaches some good habits with aiming. I'd recommend prioritizing the same crew skills on both ships: leadership, main caliber reload speed, crew interchangeability, fire prevention, and ship control. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more naval content.